Hello, another day, another overview. So I got some messages since the last one, and apparently because I started posting it public, so like some people decided to look at the videos, and I'm also receiving some kind of reviews. Um, I just want to say that when I started doing this, I was doing basically just a couple of people in my surrounding, and I'm not pretending to be any kind of military expert. I am not one. I already stated that. I'm just trying to kind of gather up some information because both I and people around me, we have our own jobs, our own lives. We don't really have the time to follow a lot of the news. So I'm kind of trying just to summarize the perspective of what's going on in the war because our local news in our country, they kind of provide the information which is 2 or 3 days late on what's the actual situation on the ground. And obviously, everyone wants to just kind of follow what's happening in the news. So that's why I'm not going too much into details what's happening, and I'm not making any major predictions on the tactics and what's happening in the war and so on. So maybe just some slight judgments. But most of the things that I'm saying is just the things that I've heard some experts or analysts that are much smarter and knowledgeable than me in warfare have said, and I'm just kind of summing it up for people to easily digest. With that out of the way, let's just jump into the overview. So let's clap our hands. Yay. It is now pretty much has been official that Ukraine has won the Battle of Kharkiv. I mean, if it says on Wikipedia, so that it means that it's true. But obviously, Ukraine has reached the border with Russia, and this part is being heavily pushed at. And the situation is quite funny because what happened was actually I'm kind of it's a developing story every time I'm making one of these, and it's so funny. What happened is that Russia started moving some of the troops, and it's like, okay, let's move them back to Russia so they can regroup and then prepare to go to the east of the country, right? And they have some reserves here, so this is basically where they went. And then the Ukrainians started pushing, and then the Russians kind of like, well, maybe we should kind of push some troops back there, back in, and then they're like, yeah, maybe. So they kind of went back in, but then the positions started to crumble, and they're like, okay, maybe not. So they kind of stayed around the border here, and basically, yeah, around this line and so on. And the point is that there is also a lot of people that's been mobilized in this occupied Ukrainian territory, and those are mobilized infantry. So now Russians are basically kind of over, like went over the Ukrainian border, but around this line, a lot of these mobilized people from that area that I showed you, they're not being let into the Russian territory, saying it's like, you're Ukrainian citizens, go to Ukraine. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, we're fighting the war with you. So it's a hilarious story. There's videos right now of them just being stuck in the middle of this like nowhere zone, basically in this small pocket that is being advanced on by the Ukrainian army. They're not being let in into the Russian territory. So they are now, and they cannot really reach proper this line because they're not being let into the Russia. So it's a hilariously stupid situation they're in. I'm expecting it's going to get settled at some point. Like, I don't think that the Russians will let them be completely destroyed. I think they need the forces, but we'll see how it's gonna go. But this is so stupid. It's I mean, it's like, it's representative of this whole Russian campaign. I already explained situation around Kharkiv. I explained that this supply line is now pretty much is being cut, which is great because the Ukrainians are going to start deploying artillery here, which is all fantastic. This creates a huge pressure for the Russians. I'm not going to go too much into this. Let's talk about Izium. So Izium got compromised. Basically, with the changes that was happening in Russia, Izium was the main strike direction because they wanted to encircle, like a big encirclement. They finally kind of got in touch with reality that they don't really have a lot of ability to do so. The problem of Izium is that they've put so much forces in there, so they are kind of stuck in there. So they remember the multi kilometer convoy that we had in the north of Ukraine. well, they basically have somewhat similar situation. There's so much armor and people in this small area, they're kind of having trouble to navigate because they really wanted to advance so hard around Izium. But basically, after they took this village of Velika Komishovka, that village, then it's a very stupid position because the village is not that far from villages surrounding it, and you can shoot from that village to the army that is stationed in this village. So taking that village is actually a big, somewhat of a disadvantage in the position that Russian is. So it's a very uncomfortable positions for the Russians. They cannot advance properly. They are extremely stuck. They took this village, yes, but it came like over a week of intense kind of fighting with a firewall, basically artillery shooting the shit out of everything that is alive in the area, and then kind of everything that has to flee a little bit back, then they're moving in. So that's the wall of fire that kind of moves forward. But that wall of fire can get stuck because the artillery still needs to come in range. Basically, it's very confusing. So they are kind of getting like, well, we cannot really advance. They really want to advance here, but they're advancing so slow that they cannot do anything. So now they're basically are like, okay, maybe this is a no-go, right? The 9th of May is gone. We cannot achieve anything. Let's see that we can use some of the forces that are just being here and they're stuck and like they cannot really advance. So they still have enough forces here to kind of slowly push forward. But a lot of the reserves that were kind of on this main attack line, they were moved to now infamous line here. This is where all the pictures that I showed last time, where the crossing of the river went horribly wrong. So this is basically now the main line of attack. So, and this is the Izium. So Izium, there's still forces for a slow creeping kind of attack. So there is enough of artillery there and so on, but a lot of the reserves from that direction, that particular direction, have been moved towards this smaller area. And basically, if we just jump right over to there, we know that the Popasna have been taken, and now they're trying to leverage that Popasna is taking like a big victory and says, woohoo, Popasna is taken, okay, nice. Now let's just push north. And basically, this is what they're trying to do. So we've seen that a lot of these, like I've showed some time ago and this week, that there's been attacks all over this front line in the different areas like Avdiivka and so on. It's been kind of rotated towards the top because there's like, okay, wow, we find like in Popasna there is an option here. It's like this is like the opportunity. They're like jumping the opportunity here. So now there is a lot of forces kind of gathering in this area. So, and if you look at the map, if the forces are gathering here and if the forces are gathering here, well, that's not really hard explanation to make. What I've been telling you for the past week, that this is basically the extent of their plans. So, and obviously, we're saying that Ukrainian army might get surrounded because, well, Rubizhne now has been taken, and I've already talked about the fact that it was about to be taken, and now it's been confirmed that it's been taken. But I've seen again the pictures from Rubizhne. Like calling it a city is a little bit an overstatement. It's a land with some buildings that used to be there. It's more of a destruction. And so obviously, like every time we're talking, it's like, hey, forces Ukraine are about to get surrounded, right? So, but the problem is, like, if before, like every time I see, it's like, well, we are always continuing to talk for like this whole like a month. That was the second stage of the Russian aggression, that the Ukrainian forces are about to get surrounded. The only thing that these people are missing is that the original plan was basically this, right? So all of this has been given up upon. This is like, this has been won by Ukraine. Well, not won, but like stalemated by Ukraine. So this is like it's a minuscule victory. Even if if they will succeed with this, this victory is in no way, shape, or form is going to influence the outcome of what's going to happen in the future. And as we've seen what is happening right now around the river here, right, the crossing that everyone is posting about, and everyone is like saying, oh my god, how Russians can be so stupid to try to cross. And I've read some engineers on the Ukrainian sides, how they were preparing that the river will be crossed, that they did the assessment of the crossing points, they did the estimates, so they're prepared. And they're still in the positions for that. The problem is that Russia has no other option. So, because they are here, they have to cross it. They have to cross it. So it seems that they will try to do it again at the same spot. Well, maybe not the same spot, but so they're like, okay, better planning, better planning. So Russians learned nothing, right? They have a huge machine. They have a lot of manpower, right? They have a lot of more firepower. That is why they're slowly getting a settlement here and there. They're winning and pushing the Ukrainian forces out of Rubizhne, for example. That's why they're getting a little bit of a ground. But that little bit of the ground comes A, at a big cost, B, at the expenses of getting rid of any kind of ammo they're having. And they're starting to have some kind of ammo problems, because this was the reports from the British. Because the British, they are trying to help Ukraine so much that they are going around basically different weapon suppliers that have the stocks of the Soviet weapons and asking, hey, can we buy some ammo from you so we can send it over to Ukraine? And what they're getting a lot is saying like, wow, you guys are like, are you having like the same schedule? Because we just received a call from like the Russian force command and saying that they need some ammo. So basically Russia is also looking where they can get some more ammo. So they're not going to run out of ammo anytime soon, but there's definitely some indications that they're either trying to undercut Ukraine from getting the ammo for Soviet equipment, or they're running out short on some of the ammo supplies themselves. But this also goes well with the second point that I'm going to make. It's going to be all over generally Ukraine, is the fact that Russia is running out of missiles. And here, important thing to say is that they're not running short on all the missiles. They're running short on extreme precision missiles, like so the missiles that were on par with like NATO standards and so on. So now they have missiles that have significant deviations, so they can be like 100 like to a kilometer even deviation for, well, some of them like maybe 200, 300, 400 meters deviation from the target. So it's not a very precise missiles that they're not going to be using, which kind of defeats a little bit the point of a missile in my perspective. But that means that the shooting of missiles around Ukraine will be done maybe a little bit less precisely. So we might see a lot of random hits, like missiles hitting like auto repair shop or like a tire exchange, or any kind of random villages, like like a toilet in the middle of the forest or anything like that, because of the fact that the deviation of the missiles is so large. And the fact that the Russians are still using the old Soviet maps to look where the Ukrainian army facilities are, that doesn't really help them targeting. So I've explained that right now, basically, the Russian plan is clear. It seems that they are finally understanding that the reality is hitting them in the face. They are continuing their hidden mobilization, but they are still having some kind of this dream that they can achieve, that they can gather force here and then cut off. Well, maybe not that large, but you get my point. I'm not really going to go in details on this. So they're still having this kind of dreams that they're going to use some of this, which is a little bit silly on their side because the timer is running short. They still have no significant reserves because there's been so many reports that a lot of the more capable Russian troops, they are the ones that are attacking, that are trying to advance, and what is staying behind is basically the forces with no combat power. So while they can kind of go forward and capture this will definitely come with a cost, and it will come at a cost at their more effective equipment. We know that Ukrainian counterattack is imminent. We know that Ukraine is getting a lot of supplies. So now it's basically a race between whether the Russia can have enough numbers so that the quality of their equipment doesn't matter, and that the Ukraine can get enough supplies of the weapons in before they they run out of stock, before they run out of stock of the Soviet equipment, or they can get overturn positions in certain regions. Like I think the Kharkiv region is extremely interesting. Though to be fair about Kharkiv region, there has been reports that Russians are reinforcing this river line here, so they're preparing basically to prevent Ukrainians from crossing this river, so Ukraine can do the same shit that Russians did if they're not accurate enough. But I don't believe they will just throw man on it. I think they will be smarter about it. So what does this leave us with? Well, the weakest link in all of this is still France and Germany. This last couple of days kind of show that Ukraine is pretty much aware that Russians are kind of starting to probe Germany and France, and they are already saying, yes, we want peace with Russia. Yes, you should negotiate. Like there has been rumors that Macron, rumors expressed by Zelensky in a comment. It wasn't directly at Macron. It was like a situation. So there is like some shady stuff here. But I would not be surprised that either Macron or Scholz would propose Ukraine to give up some of its land, to essentially let Putin save his face, which is absolutely horrendous prospect. Like imagine, like someone would, a bloody dictator wants to attack the country, kill a lot of people, like basically destroy, commit every war crime imaginable, and then Germany and France says like, well, why don't we let him take some territory and let's just go to business as usual, let's just trade with them. Like, wow, what can go wrong? Well, the sickening feeling that I'm experiencing is an understatement. So it's going to be a change, but as far as I've heard, that it seems that they are proposing that we make peace with Russia, and Germany is extremely still, like Germany still hasn't approved sending of Ukraine. They are keeping the talks open. They're still doing this, like we're going to talk loud, but we're not going to do shit, because none of the German equipment still has made it over the border to Ukraine, and I mean like heavy equipment. So there's been like talks for like 3 weeks, and Ukrainians are saying like, we don't need your weapons if they're gonna come late. Like we need weapons now because the war is happening now. So if the weapons are not coming now, the weapons are not coming. Period. So that's basically Germany's positions. They are basically just opening their mouths and trying to delay as much as possible. So it's an unreliable partner, unfortunately, in that sense. But the good news is that the social pressure on Scholz in Germany is that he cannot deny helping Ukraine, and I think that he wants to help, but I do think that there is a lot of kind of strong forces politically in Germany that is playing against him. Like I don't think the Germans are malicious or pro-Russians. I just think that they are not as decisive as a lot of people in Ukraine that are now dead would like them to be. So a lot of people could have been saved, and Germans would be more decisive. Yes, so we'll see how it goes, but we'll see how the Lend-Lease program will start delivering the weapons. The timeline is about accurate, and yeah, I think the most important thing is that Russians are finally feeling the smell of reality. There has been reports that they're digging in, they're preparing trenches for defenses, which they should do. But the problem is, it feels that it's a little bit too late. It's a bit too late. They don't have the sufficient resources to defend it, because a lot of their really good equipment has been terminated. And by the way that we're seeing Ukraine just switching some directions and opposing them on the others, there is the smell of defeat in the air that is hanging over Russians, that is all over the news, either Russians, pro-Russians, or pro-Ukrainian sides. Obviously pro-Russians to a lesser extent, because they still need to keep their morale up and propaganda up, and they're like, yeah, we're going to destroy the whole world. They're not going to destroy the world. Good stuff. Save Mariupol, save Azovstal. If you can do something, yeah. Donate to Ukrainian army, support the cause. Russia will lose this war, and the world will get rid of another dictator that was threatening to destroy it. There can nothing be bad about this.